Hello, I'm Allison Beard with the Harvard Business Review. I'm here today with Claudio Fernandez Arauz, a senior advisor at executive search firm Egon Zehnder and author of the new book, It's Not the How or the What, but the Who. Claudio, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks very much. A pleasure being here.
So that's an interesting book title. Can you explain what it means?
It's actually taken from a phrase by Jeff Bezos, the founder and CEO of Amazon. He basically said that the secret for success is to sequentially ask and properly respond to those questions. So initially, when he started working in his garage, it was all about how. How do I plan? How do I get organized? How do I delegate? How do I control? But then he brilliantly moved to the what business to be in. But now that he's at the helm of a large and complex company, all his questions are not about how, because he doesn't do it himself. They are not about what, because there are infinite possibilities. They are about who. Who are going to be the people helping him identify the what's and implement the hows. And he applied this brilliantly. It's all about who, Allison. So he basically several times said to the shareholders of Amazon that the secret for their success has been a high hiring bar. And he would repeatedly say that he would never hire anyone, even if he has to interview 50 candidates, if they are not up to standard. So it's all about the who.
But you argue that most of us aren't very good at making who decisions. So how do we get better? What's wrong with us?
Yeah, well, three things are wrong with us. Wrong brain, wrong education, wrong focus. The human animal is 2 million years old. Evolution is very slow, so our brain is not significantly different from the brain of the primitive man who was hunting deer in the savannah. So we unconsciously still make our people decisions the way he used to make it 10,000 years ago. We look for similar people to us, people we are familiar with, people we feel comfortable, and that's the opposite of what you need today. Second, our software is also obsolete. We don't study how to make this decision. And third, and most important, we have the wrong focus. Even the best practices today are about decomposing a job in the relevant competencies and finding candidates with the right fit. But in this world that is so volatile, so unpredictable, we have no clue about what the job will look like 2 years down the road. So in addition to looking for the competency fit, I believe we should shift our focus with more focus on potential, which means someone's ability to fundamentally change and grow and be able to successfully perform at a larger, more complex job about which we don't have a clue today of what it will look like.
So how can you tell if someone has potential?
Well, for more than 20 years, I've personally been researching this, and we've been researching this in our firm. And the first and most important thing is to look at the right motivation. High potentials have a wonderful mix of hunger and humility. They have this paradoxical blend of fierce commitment together with deep personal humility. They want to build something larger than themselves, not for selfish reasons, but because of selfless reasons. That's the most important one, motivation. And then there are 4 hallmarks of potential you need to look for, which are curiosity, insight, engagement, and determination.
So can you give me a specific example of someone who you knew had potential right from the start?
Let me tell you the story about Pedro Algorta. Pedro Algorta was someone I hired many years ago as a modest project manager of a small brewery in the province of Corrientes in the interior of Argentina. He had zero exposure to beer, even to beverages, even to consumer goods. Zero exposure to marketing and sales, which were quite critical for that job. He had never stepped in the province of Corrientes, yet he performed beautifully, and in 2 to 3 years he was actually promoted 2 times to finally become the CEO of the whole group. Why? Because he had potential. Interestingly, Pedro Algorta is actually one of the survivors of that dramatic plane crash in the Andes of a Uruguayan rugby team, a series of players and their friends, and Pedro was one of their friends. Now, the interesting thing is that you can see how already up there in the Andes, Pedro showed these indicators of potential. For example, the selfless commitment. He would melt snow to quench the thirst of the explorer. He would care for his dying friends. You could also see in his work how he displayed the same type of motivation. For example, after a 10-year stint in that group, he was leading an agribusiness project, and he went to the shareholders saying, this doesn't make any sense strategically. And as a result, he lost his job. That's an example of selfless commitment. And you could also see up there in the Andes, and later on in his career, wonderful examples of curiosity, insight, engagement, and determination that allowed him in that group to multiply by 6 the sales of Quilmes, the brewery of which he became the CEO, and achieve amazing results.
So in the book, you argue that we should be thinking about potential not just at our lower level hires, but also at the very top, CEOs, boards, government officials, even the Pope. So why is that so important? How do we do it?
Well, when Pope Benedict resigned, I thought that it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me to influence that monumental decision. So I published a blog on how to pick the next Pope, and then realizing that the electing cardinals were probably not going to be reading the blog, I sent them a letter. In that letter, I basically said that nobody is really prepared to be a Pope. And so in addition to looking for the obvious, such as the faith, the love of God, the virtuous life, they needed to look at the indicators of potential to see which of the cardinals could grow into a much more complex type of job where they are alone at the top. So I made a recommendation of looking for the right motivation, this paradoxical blend of fierce commitment together with deep personal humility. I got all sorts of jokes since the Pope, like myself, we are from Buenos Aires, we have a reputation for arrogance, and someone said to me, a miracle has happened, they found a humble Argentine. But that was one of the recommendations. I also recommended to look into curiosity, insight, engagement, determination, and my last recommendation was to look for someone who really believes in making great people decisions. That's key for the church. We have 4,400 bishops report directly to the Pope. And I mentioned the case of the Jesuits, and he was the first Jesuit. So the important point, that's one example, but even when electing country presidents, even when building powerful nations, we should apply with the same rigor these practices. If we want to build a great society and a better world, we need to look for potential at the top in all sorts of organizations.
Well, I hope we can start to do that.
I hope so.
Thanks so much, Claudio, for joining us.
Thanks very much, Alison. It was a pleasure.